strong dominance of the Protestant Christianity, which is central to the foundation of the United States. Canada's main form of Christianity in the foundations was Anglican and Roman Catholic. And so we bring into the foundations of this country a very different theological, ecclesial, political tradition. Now, many of these people who are wanting to get back to the rise of Christian nationalism, many of them are Protestants. They come from a Puritan background. So they're importing into Canada, in their definition of Canadian nationalism, an American form of nationalism, not the indigenous Canadian form of nationalism, which has a very different theological, philosophical, political, educational, cultural roots entirely.
Well, you know, the clash between the type of Republican conservatism, you know, Canada evolved into a nation without an ideology driving it. The United States was purely ideology-driven in its foundations and beginning, whereas Canada simply evolved into the same kind of democratic monarchy that Britain possessed. So it wasn't a liberal democracy, it was a democratic monarchy, or constitutional monarchy, really. And that has an entirely different shade to it, because since we weren't founded on something ideological, and the United States was founded upon an ideological experiment, but the religious right wanting small government, but wanting the government to be all-powerful in its control of individual behavior. Consequently, these two ideas cancel each other out. You can't have both small government and the government legislating the behavior of individuals and then enforcing the behavior of individuals. And America was founded on a kind of radical individualism and a liberal idea of freedom, the pursuit of happiness. Now, what the religious right is trying to legislate in the United States, and to a certain degree in Canada, is the abolition of the freedom and rights of the individual, and a big government that controls and manipulates the behavior of everyone, while at the same time being a small government that doesn't tax people too much. And it's ironic that in our experience, the Liberals have balanced the budget, the Conservatives seldom ever have. But demanding small government and overpowering all-present government at the same time seems to be mutually contradictory.
Well, yeah, there is this often tug and push within the Republican tradition of, on the one hand, wanting a strong government to either larger military issues to protect first world interests and law and order issues, large police force, but often too where you get this rise of what's called Reconstructionism, influenced by some key Dutch reform people, and in the States and Canada following that particular tradition. They want to govern on an ethical and social issues to be imposing standards through a whole series of legislations also. So there is this wanting to stand on the dock and wanting to stand on the boat that's moving the dock at the same time, wanting a weak government and yet wanting a strong government. And but one of the key things, I think, in the rise of Christian nationalism in Canada that Marci perhaps could have explored more deeply, because what happens in the culture wars is you often get polarized between the liberals and the conservatives or Republicans. And then, in many ways, the Mandarin class, the liberal Mandarin class, will be purring with pleasure when they read Marci's book, because it seems to vindicate the liberal agenda versus an authoritarian Republican tradition. Now, what Marci could have done, I think, two things, and I think these are valid criticisms that can be raised of this tome, is one, she perhaps does not examine